So you have your chair against the wall. You've got the back of the chair. Okay, so what I want you to have is the mat all the way to the wall as well, and all your yoga props are next to it. And you want to find the design of the approach in the beginning to your body shape is that the hands are on the chair seat. I'm not completely on the edge and falling off the chair, but I have my palms so that I can feel the heel of the hand on the seat of the chair, not curled around the chair. And then we'll begin with the wide stance of think about the wide stance of the legs, not just the feet. Because oftentimes we'll take a wide stance and we'll have the feet wide, but the knees will start to squeeze in. So you want to kind of imagine there's some sort of tension center of the knees that keeps that parting. And then as you decide how far back your feet are going to be, it's all individual. Some of us will be very comfortable and feel competent to have our feet farther back, but it is like a dog pose. So you want to feel that the hands get a little easier pressure when you stretch back, right? There's less compression in my wrist here. So I can scoot my hand in a little closer on the chair. I can work with that sense of reach out of my neck. So feel where the arms place their extension. The arms, remember, not just hands, but arms. Same with legs. Think about the whole extension of the body. And then land here so that your eyes can maybe close. And you can sense the width of the breath in the back of your body. So feeling where there's expansion. Like it's the opposite breath awareness that we sometimes start with when the chest is open, but it's the back ribs where the lungs actually, most of the lung matter is living, right? It's in the upper back space. When you're breathing, the lung matter. So, feel that expansion, maybe easy, but as your knees take a little softening bend and the arms get a little more stretch into the chest, let's spend about another 5 breaths here. That is as simple as you want to create this with your knees or your arms. If it's too much stretch on your arms, you go a little closer to the chair. Now, the farther back your feet are, the farther down the chest will stretch. Now, simple notice of how you put weight into your bones in the hands, right? So I noticed that one hand tends to get a little bit more, takes more on. And so as you let your spine actually flex, so you feel your back have a movement of rounding, I want you to begin that process of coming forward with your head moves a little front and your hands hold the side of the chair seat. Just walk the feet back so they're together. And you might feel like you're on the balls of the feet, the heels are up. And then let your body shift forward. Again, if you are moving your head right into the wall, you want to move your chair a little back from the wall. But lift the chest so you're stretching the chest up towards the ceiling, not into the wall. You're on the chair with your hands. It's a little restrictive in the lungs, and then push back and land on your heels and feel the hands still in the same setting on the side of the chair, and take about 3 more of these. So you're going through an alternating upward dog here with the chest up and then back. We could call this one back dog, okay? So the arms have the reach and the hips move a little bit back. They're not in a massive backward pressure, but they're moving. And then back towards that upward angle, lifting through the chest. And last one, as you feel the kind of combined pressure of your limbs, right? Because that's at the feet when they're together, that's at the hands when they're pushing into the chair. Let's take an easeful stance. So we'll step our feet or maybe a foot at the most in towards the chair. And then when the feet are close together, my big toes are separate. You know, I've got a couple inches between the feet, but they're close. And then let's take the hands so they press, but I would be a little cautious how much you dedicate to forceful pressing. So feel a little bit of a bend in your elbows, like you do with your knees when you're being careful in the knee joint. And stretch the right leg back and feel as if you can lift up with balancing ability. And we'll stay with the balance. Okay, we're gonna work with balance a little bit today for our core. So as you move your right knee back in through the center, I want you to keep the foot off the ground and squeeze the knee in towards your forehead. So knee towards the forehead, chin tucks in. Inhale, stretch the right leg back. So feel the natural, it's kind of a little bit of a shift in a reach through the spine. It's an arch. And then round the back, chin towards chest, knee tucks in. Step the right foot down under the chair seat and stretch the left leg kind of way back. And I know some of us, our way back reach might be a wide stance. So I want you to keep the stance still fairly narrow so that when you're here, you can have your palms down, you can have your elbows down, you can do either one that feels okay for your shoulders or your wrists, that could be wide. And when you're reaching, how about working so that you're on the finger pads here? So you're not pushing into your wrist. So if you've come to this point with the elbows, that's a different story. That's a fairly intense stretch there. But if you find that's too much and you have to be on your hands, then maybe kind of, this is generally called spidering the hands, but when you feel that less pressure into the heel of the hand, right? You have to use your core band. And then I want you to work with turning the back foot, with whether you're on your elbows or your hands. You're going to pivot the back left foot. So you're going to turn that foot out to the left side. It could be like a full rotation. You might find that you go about 90 degrees. Some of us, the angle is not quite that much. But what I find is that when my foot turns, now I can lower my right hand down and then use that turn to the left, lift your left arm up to do a little less pressure into that right hand. So it lessens the degree of maybe dependence on your right hand. This is something that many people will do, is they push into the hand and then they kind of crank into the wrist. So spider the fingers, lift up the left hand, or let the left hand be on your hip. Could be behind you. Doesn't have to be up to the sky. But feel where the rotation is through the waist. Breathing. And feeling when the turn happens in the arm span. This is interesting stuff, right? Because what's kind of rotating for me is more my arm path versus my waist. Because like this, it's the next level of it. So I want you to turn, let the left hand turn to the chair, bring the left hand down, and let both palms be on the chair. Reach with the waist like you're about ready to perform an up dog, but you're not going to commit to that. So you're just stretching your torso forward to the wall. Pivot the back heel so the back foot is stretching straight behind to parallel. And feel the length in the back of the legs. And just work with that. So take a few moments. I know this can be an intensive sensation in the calf on the back leg, but if you need to, you can step the foot a little closer or slightly out to the left side. And then we'll take a turn. Now, I like to do this one with my elbow on the chair. It kind of works deeper into my hip that way, and there's less of this funny twist into the arm and shoulder. It kind of standardizes the movement in the shoulders, like this is it. I'm not getting a lot of twist and turn. And then lift the right arm towards the ceiling or to the back, okay? So now if the elbow down doesn't work for you, because it will crowd the circulation in the hip quite a bit, it'll increase that circulation into the hip with the elbow down. Brings you closer to your hip, right? If you choose the hand on the chair and you turn, you might enjoy that one more. So just take it to your individual kind of expression in the hip joint. And if you're sliding around a bit, you might take the stance a little shorter. No problem. Remember, if your elbow is down, you want your hand to be towards the wall, the fingers to the wall versus twisting the forearm towards the right. Keep the hand straight down and then find that rotation. I'm going to take a few more moments focusing on the cycle of movement in my mid body, not so much my upper expression, but the middle turn. Breathe. And then as you turn back to the chair, maybe we can get our elbows on the chair. Maybe you have your hands down, whatever works for your, what's customized for your hips and your legs. And then what we'll do is we'll switch so that the hands are onto the seat. We'll take the right foot back, just about halfway of a step back towards your other foot. And I want you to lift up that left leg, balance, and tuck the left knee in towards your forehead, chin to chest. Inhale, lift the left leg back and up. And exhale, move the left knee in. Inhale, reaching back and up. Feel the natural arch through the spine. Yeah, kind of take away the idea that it needs to be a certain yoga pose. Feel that there's circulation, internalizing in your hip and your leg and your low back. Take one more reach back with that left leg and actually feel if you're able to reach through the leg. Maybe it's all, for me, it's quite a bit of my standing leg. That's where I'm feeling a little bit of suffering, you could say. So as the left foot steps under the chair seat, bring the right leg to stretch back. And as we feel that back foot pivot to the right this time, we'll go a little faster on the side. Kind of notice this left hip might kind of push out. So your work is on kind of streamlining this left leg to lengthen. So as I turn, I try to keep my hands on the chair for a little while, and I feel my waist turn to the right. So it's kind of twisting. And then the right arm stretches up, and I'm working on lengthening that left leg. Oh, it feels kind of good. Especially if you haven't done any stretches yet today, you might find, oh, this feels kind of nice to feel right into the bone, like a deeper pull into the muscle. And the right arm could be back. You could have your elbow on the chair, but find where that rotation balances back into this right thigh. Maybe not the hip for some of us on this one. Yeah, you might feel when your heel pushes down, the connection up into your hip and your pelvis here. So keep things really secure, like you're trying to make clean lines, pressing, lengthening, and then maybe the arm is up for a few more cycles of breath. It's only moments in the scheme of it all, but feels like an eternity. Send the right arm over the side of your face to the wall and lower the hand. Turn the back heel right away so the back foot pivots to parallel. And then I would look kind of to your legs and notice that if they're in the same track with your legs, take the right foot a little farther out behind you to the right, still parallel. And then let's try to go down to the elbows here. So let's say you go down to the elbows and you find that's too far for your range of motions. There's deep bends in the body when we do these. You can also put a bolster on the chair. This is another way to do this. If it feels too far down, this makes it a little easier. So you can try this if you don't like that idea of the elbows. I'm just hoping we can get a little bit more dense density into this hip. So feel where your pressure is in your back foot. And then bring that left arm open. straight up or back behind you and rotate. Yeah, if you're on a bolster though, just be a little careful that the bolster is not tipping over so you don't fall down. You know, you don't want it to be lifting up in a little seesaw in the chair. So you've got to find some balance onto that bolster. That would be kind of funny if I just tipped over and fell, I suppose. Okay, I don't think the yoga insurance covers the teacher. All right, so get a feel if that left arm is lifting or if it's down on the back and where that rotation occurs through the waist. Maybe it's tiny that you can get the waist to pivot. Kind of takes your breath away to effort the core body to turn. And if you have your head kind of twisting and turning at the neck, just turn your head so you're looking back down towards the arm on the chair. Okay, so the neck is in neutral. I know you got to drive your body like a car here. So rotate. You're still in park. Feel the back leg. If it's slipping, sliding around, you might scoot it in, no problem. I'd rather have it too close than too far back. Because not that you'll find an injury, but if you're holding so much into that left hip and then it starts to convey pressure in the low back. So feel when you come back down. So if my left arm is up, I'm going to lower it down and then shift. Take a moment here. You got your bolster, move it away. Then I want you to shift so the left foot moves back and then you stretch forward into that clean sweep of alternating up dog into back dog. Stretching your feet maybe together, close, they could be apart. I want you to work with us through the chest and the back. Take a few of these total. Again, if you're too close to the wall with the chair still is supported near the wall, even if your chair is not against it. Right, so if it's a few inches away for your height, that's fine, because we are going to move the chair, all of us, in a few moments. Okay, now take one more time. See if you can find just a clean sweep, especially from the front of the spine here with an up dog, wherever you might be with it. And then the back line through the back dog. That feels good. So get that full reach through the chest. Elbows perhaps on the chair seat if you need. Okay. And then we're going to step forward and actually step our right foot up on the seat. Okay, so I'll show you half of it. But let's see, let's get a block as well. So what you'll do, and I'll show you the arm part. I'll come down to my mat to show that piece to you. But you'll step your right foot up and then you take your block in your hands like so. So your block is going to be in a wide setting, okay? So you'll take a stance and I want you to keep your right foot onto that chair seat, but what you'll do is you'll take your block so it's overhead like so, and you'll be moving your elbows just besides your head. They don't move much actually. The key would be to keep the elbows in that same track, not to move them like this, forward and back, forward and back. They stay up beside you, whether they're far back or they're a little forward of your peripheral vision. And your hands move back and up. And you're doing that when you're standing, right, with your right foot on the chair. So you've got your right foot down and you're working with this mid-body balance. So alternate the lift and the bend of the arms. Yeah, it's like a light weight on your triceps. This is one you can live with the next day. Okay, now bring the block forward. Let it be really mellow in your arms so the elbows are soft, like you're about ready to give a basket to somebody. And then lower down the right foot, take the left foot up. And then here, as we have the block in front with the wide setting, then I want you to keep the elbows by the sides, right? They're not necessarily perfect side, but where I can put my elbows close. And we'll do the same exercise again, but I want you to move the block so it's in front of the face and then straight up. And you might find, oh, I can lift it and then back to the same exercise. So the elbows are by the sides of the head, block goes behind you. It doesn't have to touch your back, not at all. So instead of having the idea of the prop being specifically set, I want you to keep doing this. Your foot is on the chair, but your real focus here is this movement and circulation into the tricep, right, into the meridians that flow into the heart and the lungs, and all the lymph in here. So you want to get a feel of this movement, and then also the ribs, right? If it gets kind of trapped in here, you might have interest in just holding your block and just breathing with your hands straight back and not doing the pumping movement. So this for me is, so I just hold my block, I push into it, and then I focus on my ribs expansion outward. So you can do that for just a few moments too, before we end this cycle of strangeness. Okay. All right, so now as you lower down your left foot, let's take the chair, block away, take the chair a little bit away from the wall for all of us. We don't want to get our fingers pinched behind the chair. And then you'll take a seat, and you want the chair so it's not all the way in the middle of the mat, but maybe a quarter of the way from the wall. And then just take a seat and get a ball, or if you don't have a ball, you can use a block. It's going to be between the knees, okay? So yeah, just get a feel of that way that you're sitting. So I'm sitting towards the edge, I'm not on the edge, so I won't slip over, but I'm not in the back, so I can reach to my chair seat. So I'm on the front part of my chair. So take a few moments where you're centering your hips, your sitting bones, and then feel the reach of the leg from the sitting bones. You might orient that sensation by relaxing your hands. This might be too much with the palms down. It might be better to relax your hand piece, right? The whole particular sensation of the palm. And if there's a chance you can squeeze the ball, I want you to have the ball so it's between the knees, so you could certainly give it a try. So when you squeeze into that ball, breathe. How about just keep breathing? And then relax the grip into the ball and squeeze. So let's go at our own timing. Alternate squeezing and releasing for about another half minute or so. So we get a feel of the circulation into the legs. Breathing. Okay, now get a feel when it's neutral. You just have the ball. And then we'll take a reach back with our hands onto the seat. Now we want to keep the hands on the seat and maybe the corner behind the seat, but certainly not on the back bar. So we all probably have a chair that some of us might have a back on the chair. So if that's bothering you to put your arms through that and it feels like it's kind of poking your arm, then you could hold the sides of the chair with no problem, I hope. Yeah, and that might be just fine. In fact, they're both interesting. I don't know if there's one better than the other. This is just what's educated the most, is the hands to the seat at the back inside the arms. And I can see a benefit to either. So feel though that the shoulders are moving out with the chest is moving out and the shoulders are shifting back. I know it's hard to get your neck stable here. So if you're really active trying to get those shoulders back, and then you feel like your neck is unsure, then emphasize the sitting bones centered. So you're lining up through your spine, all the arches in the back. Okay, what I want us to find is that we have our center before we twist. So really visualize here the focus. Don't just visualize doing it too. That your spine has its 3 curves, but you're basically sitting tall. Kind of clear. Start with the lifted body. Let's not say straight spine, because we don't have a straight spine. But start with a lifted body. Although we've been told that many times, I think. And you'll turn so the left hand comes to the right leg. Lifted body, that's the key. Don't round back to take the turn. And then rotate by having that right hand. See if it's behind the chair, the seat. This is helpful because if I have my hand on the side, it's a little challenging to get an appropriate movement back with my right shoulder. So do the best you can using the seat that you have. And left hand is to the right side of the leg. Could be towards the knee for those long arm people. It's probably on the kind of center of the thigh for shorter. That's where I'm at here. That's right now. Okay, turn the waist and bend through that right arm. I know some of us might keep the arm as the focus, but the focus is also the knees. So if you peek back to your knees, the right one's trying to go this way. No, we don't want that. We want them squeezing into the ball and staying forward. So your isolation is that your thoracic does the turn, not the lumbar. Right? The most twist you get in your back is right where they meet, right where the thoracic and lumbar meet. Okay, come back center, hands interlace, spine flexion like a cat pose. Lift up just gently, don't overcharge the shoulders, just feel that your spine is lifting. That's the key, not so much the arm stuff. Feel the mid-body pushing down into your seat. Exhale, inhale, turn to your left, right hand to that left leg, bring the left hand down to the chair seat and feel that rotation. And when the body is in that turn, yeah, take a little bit of a pause with noticing the knees. Yeah, I mean, I have one side that likes to swerve more than the other. Part of it's my hand is pulling the leg. So that's that I tell my arm you're doing, it's not me, it's the arm, but it is us, right? Your individual composition. So you want to squeeze into the ball and see if that helps you. It might feel like a stomach pressure. So when you're rotating, remember, relax the abdomen. Feel a little bit of lift in the heart and a rotation. And just simply breathe. Maybe close the eyes. Notice internally your awareness. Try to stay in the moment here. Yeah, I have a really mild squeeze into my ball. It's not aggressive. It's just a little mild squeeze. And then as I release the touch with the left hand on the chair, I just slide my right hand and come back forward. And then now all the leg paths have had a lot of back pressure, contraction. So what we're going to do is we'll take the ball out. And I want you to slide a blanket in kind of about where your feet just were, okay? And then you'll carefully rotate and you'll take a lean down so your knees will be on your blanket, okay? And you'll step the right foot to the side of the chair, okay? And I want you to lean into it. Now, I have to go a little farther back with my blanket. I need a little bit more space here for my hip flexors. But as I step out to the right with my foot, everyone's here, should I start left side? Okay. Okay, lean forward so the elbows are on the chair. Now you can move your chair farther forward. You can put it right up to the wall. So as you lean, you'll feel where the front of that left thigh clearly stretches. If it's too much with your knee down, you can hook your toes under and lift the knee off the blanket. Oh my goodness, that's a stretch. Okay, so feel the sinking of the leg, right? So gravity has you all the time. It stretches it out. But as you create that length, Feel the pressure through the right foot. Yeah, and if you feel a little side bound on the right, it's kind of pulling you over. That's good. I want you to feel like it is a little bit one-sided, because it is one side at a time. And you know, you could go without the elbows on the chair. You could be here with the hands. This kind of feels nice. The chair now pushes into the wall a little bit. And I get some resistance. But if it feels more knee pressure, then you go back down to the elbows. Yeah, be a little careful here. You want to focus and target the front of the left leg. Very specific. Okay, now change so the right leg moves to the knee to the blanket, left foot steps to the left side, so my foot is turned out. And then I let my body weight lean forward so the front of that right thigh is reaching, right? The inside of the left thigh is stretching. If it feels like you got a bit of a snag in your adductor and it's not quite loosening up, probably coming upright would be better. Right? Sometimes there's a catch in the leg. You can't quite push through the challenge through the, the full leg. It doesn't kind of unzip its tension. So sometimes being higher up, especially if you don't do a lot of leg stretches. They're kind of the lifeline to the circulatory system though. Leg stretches are. So when you're leaning into it, feel where the pressure is, because all that circulation goes back to the groins. Right, it circulates back up to the heart. So feel where the stretch is through that left leg, how it works for you. Elbows down or hands on the chair, completely individual decision. But lengthen the front of that right thigh, even if your toes are under and your knee is up. Okay, now with all this kind of resistance work we've been doing, okay, we're going to work on kind of unwinding but stimulating the vascular system just a different way. The ultimate practice, having both of these together in one class. So shift your hands on the chair now to come back with that left leg. And then I want you to move the chair aside and you'll take your props around here. So what I want us to design is that we have a couple blankets at the back of our mat. We're still near the wall. I'm going to change that because we'll use it very soon again. You just want to decide how far away you are from the wall, I think. That's the issue, isn't it? So have enough of spacing so that you have your bolster in the center, your two blankets at the back. You got a block now, so you're going to use that now. You got a sandbag, and you got a belt. Those are the things you're going to need in this track. Okay, so the block is optional for this piece. If we've had a lot of circulation going through substantially, so you might not want the block, but I just use it because it's a nice standard of care for this pose, I think. So I put the block under the pelvis and my feet just perfectly touch the wall, so I lucked out on that one. And if you want to get closer, you can. You might like to feel kind of the ball of the foot. You might like to feel the whole foot. You might want no feet on the wall. Okay. All right. Now, when you use the sand across the body, it could be on the legs, it could be on the ribs. So I would just, some of you already know, right? You're going to use the leg, the sand on the legs to initiate this process. But if you notice that does put pressure on the tailbone and it's not comfortable, you could scoot your feet in and kind of play with that, where the block is exactly underneath your pelvis. I actually feel like my feet need to be wider. That's much better on my pelvis and just feels better. So however you intellectualize the anatomy on it, just find what helps you feel better. Okay. Fuss around. Arms open. Oh, this feels nice in the chest. So feel the spread of the movement of the chest, the pec muscles out. Feel where the waist has a length, like no other pose, right? This is clearly a specific waist lengthening position. And then relax the spectrum of focus so that you're internalizing the breath, you know, the phases of movement through your muscles, and the weight of your head back. You can use one blanket, you can use two. If you feel a crunchiness in the neck, like it's too much lift, then just go down to one blanket and see if that contributes to feeling better. Alternating the in and the out breath, receiving your breath, and relaxing on the out breath. Now carefully notate the rotation of the shoulders. If there's any ability to do that, I find I'm kind of halfway there. My arms are kind of in the way, right? I have the floor is in the way, it's not my arms. The floor is holding me back from turning them, right? If I was sitting upright, I could roll them back more. But just kind of feel when you effort that, how maybe moving your arms a little downwards could help the neck stretch. But we'll kind of work with that in the next pose in brain float. So what I want you to work your way towards is the front body has been lengthened, front spaces. So you'll bend your knees, slide your feet in so that you have a transition shape, right? Your knees are bending so you can actually move things around. So the sand goes away, but we are going to use it pretty quickly onto the front of the leg. So you'll lift up your heels. Be careful in the neck here. So take a blanket back. If you are already at one, then you're fine. But you want to have one blanket. You might even put your fingers back around the occiput, that shelf at the back of your skull, and just kind of mobilize that a little side to side. And notice that it's kind of like back to, you know, when you hold a baby's head, it kind of wobbles around. It doesn't quite have its stance on things. So you want to kind of feel that tousle in when you hold your skull. It's a great ability to have to jiggle that around. And then as you move your hands to your bolster, you have to move the weight back into your shoulder blades and then just push the bolster down a little itty bit at first, then feel your back on the bolster. Okay, put your heels down. Notice if that's enough underneath you to hold your pelvis. If you go farther down, then you find it's too far down, it's hard to get back, the bolster farther back again. So I find I like to kind of keep it minimal. It's usually right across. Remember that line, the eyebrows of the buttocks? That's kind of usually if I feel that's the medial space here. And then as I lift up my feet, I'm a little far, my bolster's a little far down actually. So I'm gonna scoot myself so the knees are up, feet are up, and I get my belt and my sand kind of close to me, belt on. And you might shift the knees side to side so you feel like you've got a pretty good state of pelvis on the bolster. State of pelvis, the state of the pelvis. Okay, pelvic state. So take a belt and make a big loop here. So you want a big loop. Buckle up, big loops. Yeah, don't underdo your loop here. We'll start with right foot. So you'll scoop up your right foot in the loop and lower the left leg. Okay, so get a feel for that leg straight down. If the block is in the way and you don't like it, you could kind of move it aside. I personally don't mind it at all, but you choose. Okay, you got your sand. You're gonna lengthen the front of the left thigh with the sand first. Okay, so it goes straight down. There's no reason why you can't put it across the leg. If that's easier, you could do a little of each where you kind of just put it on and then maybe below the very top of the thigh, it kind of turns in so it doesn't fall off. That's okay too. Yeah, the key is to get a hold of your right leg now and kind of maintain this awareness of the left thigh easing. Give it time, and maybe your foot's too much in the midline. You might move your foot a little bit out. You might go a little bit back and forth with it. The key though is getting the hip flexor to release. So my foot's too far in. I can tell if I just try to let it go. Now my foot's turning out. So I'm going to step a little bit out. Then when I relax my left foot or it touches the wall a little bit, the thigh matter can go a little bit. So hold on to the belt, get the belt behind your head to the occiput. And you're trying to get a basic hold. Now, even if your belt is kind of twisted, you probably don't want it twisted on your head. But as you get the path of leaning back into the belt, arms relax. They could be down. They can't go all the way by the hips because of the bolster. And the shoulders are simply relaxed back. And your design here is straight up. For some of us, it will go back a little bit over the belly button. You might have the legs shift back. And it's entirely up to you. Get a feel for where the belt is on the foot that's helpful. Right? Maybe it's at the ball of the foot. Maybe it's closer to the heel. Okay, there's a benefit for either of those. They're different though, right? At the heel, if closer to the heel is going to feel more hamstring stretch. The ball of the foot is going to be a little more in the calf. Okay, so, and you may not feel a deep stretch on either of those areas, but it could be for some people. Depends on the mood of your leg. If it wants to feel. Your leg is into feeling. My leg has no feelings. So with the weight of your head back, it will maybe go farther back. Find the balance. Kind of play with that. Sometimes you get it, you start to slide the belt and it's almost, it goes really quite far back on the head, the skull, almost turning towards the crown. Some people really like that, some farther back towards really to the occiput. You get a few moments here where the circulation kind of slides into the right leg. And some of us, our head will be back on the blanket. Ribs moving. Yeah, relax the left foot. If it happens to turn out, let it be. Focus on what the sandbag is helping with in the circulation of the thigh. Even if you've arrived at a place where you're pretty competent in this, you can find where it's easy. I want you to come back up with your head, if that's where you ended up, and then move the sand only to get it to the other side. So that's a bit of an effort. You've got to get your left foot up. You might have to hold your belt. You let your right foot lower down. And then move the sand to the front of the right thigh. Yeah, if your belt is hanging in front of your mouth, don't chew on it. Yeah, one side might feel very different with the leg, the top, the foot, but you know, sometimes it ends up getting to be about the same. So the beginning, watch your energy around it, just see how it is. You could always bring the foot a little farther out with the right leg. The sand is on top of the right thigh now. Left leg is in that lift. It's okay to strive for the straight leg, the lifted leg. Everyone has a different perspective on that with the knee bending. I'm not putting force into my foot, so hyperextending is a little different. And trying to get back to getting length in the leg, especially if it's upside down. But you know, if it feels like it's causing the knee to push through, then of course you're going to do a micro bend. But get a feel for how your head, it's an extremity too, right? The brain, the limbic brain, some people think of it as a limb. You want to get a feel of that moving back and back. Only goes so far, I know, but feel the head tip back. If you close your eyes and you sense, how does the belt hold the bottom of the foot? And if it feels like it's turned out, look at the foot and see if you can work with getting it to stretch so the bottom of the foot is stretching. The belt is where you prefer it, ball or the heel. If this changes the heart rate quite a bit, I would pause on intensity because it's a mild inversion and it will change the vascular system a little bit. So try to practice that calm breath. Yeah, feel how your leg is up, feel the circulation kind of spilling into the hip. So it'll be good before we do hip work to get the circulation flowing into the hips by inverting the body. A natural way to do that. Okay, now as the motion goes with the foot pushing, you'll begin to slide that sand away. And I would keep it near the left side of your body. For instance, you're already pushing it around, move the sand to the left on the ground. You know, it doesn't have to be on the side of your body, but nearby. And then take the hands to the back of the skull, slide the belt away and bring the the right foot up into the belt, and then hold the belt like you have it so it's over your face. It might be over your nose, maybe over your forehead, but it's over your face. You can maybe see the hands holding it, and then feel how the legs are just straight up. Maybe nod your head a little side to side, but manage the lift. Notice the circulation in the feet. And then as your feet push out into the belt, your hands move towards them naturally. And as it kind of pushes into your belt, hold on firm. Okay? Because you're in the driver's seat, right, with the belt. You're the one holding this position. So feel when your feet are pushed out, they're not trying to overly flex or point, they're just neutral. They're just feet out in a belt, that's it. Nothing special. Okay, but when you feel that movement out in the legs, that stance is wide. Now I want you to try to just flex your feet, so the bottoms of the feet, you know, try to spin towards the ceiling, try to flatten the bottom of the foot. Pull firm with your hands. This position of pulling might be pretty good for most shoulders. If it's too much for you, you can pass on it and maybe slide the hands out wider, but I have my fingers right together. My hands are together, they're close, the thumbs are touching. Okay, now slide the feet back together. Don't worry about where your hands are placed, just bend your knees, take the belt off. And then as your knees go side to side, just simple, easeful warming up of the back. Yeah, feel how the feet are close. The knees are closer, but feel the position of sliding. So when I slide over or my knees go to the side, the top leg, right, is not exactly with the bottom leg because of the interaction of the pelvis. So feel that kind of sliding away back side to side. And just let the legs have a natural habit of shifting. They don't have to be locked together. That's the reason I want you to try this, is kind of that windshield wiper, because they're not exactly stacked either. Okay, go get the windshield wipers working. You might have to wait a little while till they're on again. So when you come back into the center, you're going to roll left. In fact, I think the only issue with getting out of this might be this block below your bolster. So you might feel where that is and kind of move it aside. I'm going to move it back because I know I'll use it for my side sage. Roll left and then slide down to your face of your mat towards the other side of the bolster, and just momentarily come up so you're sitting. Yep, you're sitting on your hip. So when we design the side sage, I want you to have a simple perspective where if you've got a round bolster, you're going to get that. All these props we have. Otherwise, you might just keep it like this with a standard size bolster, no problem. We get a couple blankies. This one, we kind of know the drill out of all of that, what we've done today. Now we finally get something normal. Good to have a few normal poses. Ball on the inside of the right leg. And, you know, you might get the habit of kind of shifting your hip on the ground so you get it close to the bolster. Good for you. So find those habits that are helpful and then stand on the side, your special side of sand. Lean into your blankets. Hold that left knee so it's closer, tucked up to the bolster. And then take your time, right? Maybe your arm remains on the side. Maybe your blanket's too low. Yeah, so this one, you don't want the blanket so low that it doesn't feel good on your neck, but some of us are fine if that spatial difference is, it looks like it's farther down. It's not wrong. It depends on how you feel. Okay, so go towards feeling versus following one pose for all. So as you feel the reach of the right side, right, it could be overhead, it could be a little bit open. I sometimes like to kind of circle my arm and notice if I can get my ribs to feel the stretch as well. Okay, so find a resting place for the right arm. It could be overhead to the block. It might not be. It might be that's straining. And I'll go back to the side. And then study the breath in the ribs next to that sandbag. If your sand is on your hip, then still study the rib breath. Expansion and centering. Great, feeling, slowing down. Now simply feel that the waist is a cylindrical path of breath here, but however you're witnessing the breath, right? Breathe. Focus on some sensation of breath. And we're gonna go in towards this posterior core kind of band. So it's not gonna be side focus as much as it's gonna be the back. Like in the beginning, we did a little of that when we had our hands on the chair, like the breath in the back. Let's just kind of in between these sage sides, just articulate awareness. Just be careful not to take a nap in it, because it's easy to just kind of doze off. And maybe that's a healthy way for you to breathe, is to just take a little resting and come back when you notice we're doing something again. So rotate to the left, down onto your hands. Maybe move the ball. Okay, now when you turn to your bolster, what you'll want to find is that you'll turn it as well. So let's do this. Let's, we'll put the blanket set a little bit back to the other side, and then we'll pivot the bolster. So you might have to kind of push things up your mat in the back area, away from the wall. You can touch the wall with your feet, but you don't want to have your blankets under your bolster, okay? So you'll release your front body down. I like the blankets under my elbows. I find this to be pleasant. And then I eventually kind of scoot a little bit up until I get like this central, this is oftentimes called surfboard. But to make it a real surfboard pose, you'd need to have something under the top of your feet. But we're not going to spend energy putting blankets under there. Let's just keep it here so your knees can relax. There's nothing pulling your feet up. But as your forehead touches down, let the knees be separated so that you can relax at the groins. It's not frog pose. You don't need to put your feet together and strain your stretch in your groins, but feel the tops of the feet rest. And breathe so that back space expands. And this deep breath and pressure could get you sleepy. So if you just kind of doze off for a few moments, just no problem. I'd rather have you relax your breath and your back versus strain it. Now lift your head, slide your hands down besides the bolster. Make sure they're wide enough out from the bolster so that you're feeling comfortable in your shoulders. Too far in will kind of scrunch the shoulder, the front of the shoulder head in. So it's like you're trying to span open the collarbone a little bit. Now push and lift up your head, your ribs, your waist. Yeah, I actually like feeling the wall. That's kind of helpful. Gives me a little something, but focus towards the spine and that posterior core kind of wave. Lower down your torso, like you're focusing on the centerpiece of the body, the spine, to go back down, and then bring your hands off the ground. Yep, so you're off ground with hands, you're working the core muscles. And then if your elbows stay by the sides, that's okay. You can stay with that. Hands could also stretch straight back, so you have arms straight by the sides, palms towards you. Lift up the chest. Breathe. Okay, lower the hands down, elbows by the sides. Push the hips back. Turn the bolster across, and then take side sage on the second hip, right, the right hip. So you're going to lean down to that right hip and emphasize, right, that it's these side tissues. So when I have the ball on the inside of the left leg, it's kind of interesting, you know. The more you get in the slow spaces, slow movement, we're in the slow movement. You know, you might relate to the props a little different, right? Noticing this is side work. So it doesn't mean my arm has to go touch the block. I mean, if all this side feels smooth and I can breathe easily, but when my arm goes up, of course, this is a joint, these are muscles I'm trying to strengthen. There's a reason. And also arm work, it doesn't hurt, right? It's going to help strengthen in the spine, right? So this isn't a bad thing, but if it does cause you issue in your tissues, then just let the hand change, right? It could go across the chest on a bolster too. It doesn't have to go down to the side. So, you know, relax your idea around what you should do and find what's comfortable enough. And then be in it. And I'm turning my head a little bit. That's probably more than you need to. So you could be on the side of your head, so your ear, or you could be a little bit towards the back. Feel what's better on your neck. And then go into it and breathe. You emphasize the rib cage movement. Exhaling completely. You know, wherever your left arm is, we're going to shift the sand away. And we'll take a Baddha Konasana at the wall. So what I want you to work through is the shift to the right hip, come up, and then take the bolster. We'll move the bolster, don't take it, move it. Move it to the wall. Base, flat bolster. If you have the round, you need a flat one. And then you don't need just one blanket. And lower on the back so the knees are out and the feet are together. Yeah, if you tend to use blocks for this, this is very short time with this one. So you probably will be capable of getting close enough to the wall that it almost feels like the bolster is partially helpful for the legs. But you know, it might be quite the stretch here in the thighs, right, the inner thigh. So use the blocks if you find that, well, you really want them. I guess I'll leave my block there. Let's see where I'll need it now. Okay, so feet are together. And I try to get my feet so that my toes are stretching. And then my hands are not exactly the replication of my feet, how they work, but you can feel that the feet together, the soles, and the stretch of the toes at the wall. I love this one. I find this to be really curious how this goes through the workings of the legs. You don't lose that insight. Get a ball or a block, doesn't matter when. I don't think it matters a lot right now. Bring your feet to the wall. Maybe scoot a little bit towards the wall, and you might have to move your blanket too, but ball between the knees, okay? And push into the wall. Lift up the hips and let the arms be down by the sides. Yeah, blanket no good for my neck. This is better. Okay. Now you might slip and slide a little. You might notice there's a little bit of slippage here. So your work when you lower down the spine is to create that length through the spinal column. Make sure you're close enough to the wall. Okay, let's do one more. We're going to do this on the bolster in a moment, but just get to feel how much height you get on your back with the lift. And then the ball is helpful. Something between the knees is quite helpful. Lower down, bring your feet to the bolster. Okay, the feet are on top of it. They're not pushed at the wall. And push down. Again, you can have your blanket under your head. This is a very personal choice, right? If it feels better, then you just use it. No big deal. Lift and lower the spine. Now, I find this to me is better for my slippage. I find the bolster under my feet works better for me than the wall. That's just me. So I've kind of arrived at that. So I'm not going to put that on everybody to have to do that version. So you choose. In the next few moments, I want you to eventually arrive where you can put a block under your pelvis. Now you might have the ball still between the knees. I'm just going to keep it because it's a good spacer for my back. You know, it's a spacer for the lumbar, even though it's your knees, right? It keeps the distance of the legs. I put a block mid-height under my back of my pelvis. So it's actually, to me, I feel close to the tailbone. And you can have your feet at the wall. You can have your feet on the bolster. It's either one. Either one is fine. I'm too far away from the wall to make that one work, but you can always reset yourself. Roll the shoulders down and in. So down would be I reach my hands to the wall, and then I roll my shoulders around the sides and then inwards. They may not touch each other whatsoever, but it's a great movement for your chest muscles to open and help the lift in your spine. It's a great one for our backs. Okay. If there's some of you that decide, you know, I really want to get my feet on the ground, get my quad stretch, you could kick your, you might take a little maneuvering, but you could kick your bolster over to the side and put your feet down. That might work kind of nicely here. It's a lot of core to get there, but you can work that if you don't like your bolster. But get a feeling of the shoulders back, down, and then in. A few moments here, breathing, centering the spine through the crown of the head, all the way back and through. Now bring your feet up maybe to the wall. Push into your feet, just the balls of the feet, lift the heels and slide the block away. Lower the spine. Okay, get the blanket under your head. You might actually be scooting back. So what we'll do is a crossover. So I like to keep the ball as long as I can tolerate, just to keep a little mild squeeze, some pelvic floor work. It's just minor, but it's good work for your pelvic floor. So use the ball when you can. And then bring the knees into the chest and take that right leg down. Make sure you don't hit the wall too hard. You want to have the right knee bending so the wall is not that big of a deal if it's close. And then put the ball to the sacrum. The bolster's on the right side. So if you missed that piece, I already had moved my bolster, so that's why it was already there, but you can kick your bolster to the right side of your mat. Okay. Yeah, sand goes on the exterior left leg, and the left arm opens. Yeah, and you might go, okay, my left chest muscle pathway is kind of leaking into my arm, and then it's vice versa for circulation to your heart and your lungs. All right, so get a feel for, right, heart meridian, thumb line into the heart, along the outside, up, over the shoulder, back to the lung. So we're trying to span that open, and if your head rolls to the left, take it easy. And expanding through the movement chamber of your lungs. So you might feel that movement chamber in the ribs. You might feel it in the belly. And maybe still wondering if you're feeling your lungs at all. Okay, now feel where that left leg is crossed. Notice if your base connection is your right hip. For me, it's my bottom hip. That's where the weight bearing is going in this pose. So when you slide your sand away, there's still more stretch to do, and it's not over. But, you know, convey to your leg that you're going to move the left leg so it moves towards the back of you, well, actually towards the top of you, so towards your shoulder. So you can kind of feel when you guide your knee back, and move the ball, and then roll onto the back. So the knee's kind of pull one at a time towards your chest. You kind of get a little bit lopsided there, rocking side to side. I get lopsided. And then move the bolster to the other side, away from the knees to the floor. Stretch the left leg. It could stay a little bent. It doesn't have to be straight leg, then pivot, because it's a curved pose, right? So I roll onto the left hip. And then I tend to skedaddle more into the one side when I cross over. I notice my habits. So it's like you can figure out so much by just studying your movements, just being quiet with yourself and find out where your habits are, one side or the next. Just takes getting slow, huh? So start to work with that sand. If you don't like sand on you for this pose, you don't have to use it by any means. But sometimes I actually like my sand on this one on my arm. But I know these dense areas can use the weight bearing. So I just put it there on the leg because I want to benefit my hip and my spine. So I'll go there. The arm piece is just going to stretch out the shoulder. We don't need to overstretch our shoulders generally. We need to help our spine get up and lifted. So be a little cautious on shoulder as your head rolls to the right. And simply feel the circulation. Feel the movement of the breath. This is a pretty regular part of our practice, right? We're using these hip crossovers, and I generally link these with legs up at the end. So notice the frequency that we do this and finding some regularity of the practice with these poses. It kind of works into the back line of the body, up into the low back, waist, you know, the kidney area, and it might feel like that area gets squeezed up a bit, or tension. Maybe not, but feel this kind of frees up circulation, increases it in that area, stimulating. Okay, now taking the sand away, I would push the sand down towards the wall a little bit. Then the ball goes away. And then you take the body weight over towards the left and then move your bolster right up to the wall and try to come up on the other side, right? So if you always go up on your left hip down, you know, try the other side, just give it a try. If you get really confused, that's good. Get confused, like, well, I'm always on the side, now I don't know how to get upside down. So try the other side. Movement is good for us, for our brain. So learning, you know, muscle memory. So when I shift, I try to roll my body weight and go up. Yep, worked out pretty good. So sometimes trying another side, if you don't want to do that, up to you. Completely up to you. But add some sand to the feet. Place the weight into your back of your pelvis. So this is tricky, right? To keep your back close. Getting that sand set. Enough space at the feet. Might work out. And then when the feet are lifting, it senses a weight into the hips. Feel the spine gradually inch out. And the bolster is going to make more length in your back, right? We clearly know that because it's kind of lifting my hips and then it pulls that back down, stretches it through. So I would just let your mind kind of calculate that awareness of length in your back. Okay, everything's got some length approaching the circulation, right? So as your arms spread out, cactus is nice. It seems to be the constant one, but sometimes arms down towards the wall feel really good too. Find what feels best for your nervous system, whichever is less strained right now. And with that repetition of breathing in, filling the belly, exhale, centering. And whatever awareness you hear in the body, it could be digestive tract. See if you can emphasize the focus on the mental track towards the breath. And be an easy guide of in and out breath. Returning the body to a state of balance. Now with the belly motion with the breath, there is an expansion and a light contraction. Let the contraction be less so that you feel mostly comfortable expansion. And then just ease on the exhale. So the breath flows. It feels like it flows out. It feels like it floats down into the torso. But using that to relax you. Now with the feet moving a little bit away from the wall, guide the knees to bending. Feel a little bit of that flexion increasing, but also a different kind of arch. And just get rid of the sand at your leisure. You can toss it overhead, you can move it to the side. And then with the knees and the bending, hold the back of the legs for a moment so the spine has a nice full stretch. And be cautious of the knees, make sure they feel like even the bend of them is calm. You can come out of this, rolling to the side. You guess you could do a back somersault if you like those. But when you come out, you'll sit back onto your bolster and find that height, that lift of spine and mind, and bring the hands in front of the heart. Let's take a moment for a collective focus, breathing and wellness. And exhale, bowing into your heart.